Michael Sokil has built a large fan base recreating the music of the Beatles. He plays all the instruments himself and covers each song from beginning to end. If you're a fan of the Beatles, you should definitely check out his channel on YouTube. I'm here with Michael Sokil, and nice to meet you, man.
Good to be here.
I've been dying to meet you. I really am a fan of your stuff.
I'm a fan of yours too.
Michael has a former channel that people love so much. When he took down the videos, they started putting them back up again. Who does that, right?
Yep.
Were you in college when that was going on?
I was, yeah. So I actually started uploading in like 2008, only 3 years after YouTube came out. Very low tech, not a lot of Beatles stuff was on YouTube. So I basically found a cheap camera and filmed myself doing lessons, doing guitar parts. There wasn't much of a market back then, so I kind of cornered it early. And yeah, people won't let it die. It just keeps coming back.
Your detail about how to sound like John Lennon, how to sound like George Harrison, and then I was really impressed because there are a lot of people who say they play Blackbird, but they really don't because they can't do the finger picking. And the finger picking is completely essential in that song. But I use 3 fingers, and I'm doing the same exact thing, but he plays it just like Paul McCartney plays it, which is awesome. And he explains the 6 steps with a sweep of the 2 fingers, and that is how McCartney plays it. There's no doubt about that. Do you find that, like, when I watch McCartney in concert, and I've seen him twice live, when he plays Yesterday Now, he doesn't play it like he did it on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Right.
He goes down.
Yeah, it's funny.
And Ed Sullivan, he pulls it up, and it's a totally different sound. I wonder if he's aware of that. I guess
that's one of the funny things about the sources you use to study. I'm sure you're a nerd like me. You study the concert footage from the 60s, you listen to the records, and then you watch their performances now. And sometimes they do change. They play things in different keys. They play things differently. I was studying the medley, the Abbey Road medley, and Paul did it, I think, only once at some random concert in the late 90s. And I was watching his hands on the piano, and he was not playing it like the record. It was a slightly different style. So yeah, we have to use our own judgment sometimes because even the guys themselves don't play it the same way.
Yeah, I want to talk about your gear first of all. Like as a fellow guitarist, and we play a lot of instruments. We both do that. What's your favorite instrument to actually play? I mean, in terms of, is it guitar, bass, drums?
What a great question. I think drums are always my favorite because they're the most fun to play. And I just gotten a 1969 Black Oyster Pearl vintage Ludwig set, and it's phenomenal.
Is that the one that's in the videos that we see?
Yeah, that's the one. I got it between the last Hard Day's Night videos, and I think it's on You Can't Do That, I Should Have Known Better, like the last couple Hard Day's Night videos I did, and now all the help videos I've started. Just sounds wonderful. It looks like the Black Oyster Pearl wrap is exact.
It sounds amazing because you get the tuning right, you get the sound right, and I'm going to get into that too because it's one thing to cover the Beatles, but when you really get the tone, that's what impresses me. But not everybody can do that. And with the drums, you totally nail it. You totally nail that sound.
Oh, thanks. Very nice.
And I know we all know about the tea towels put on the toms and everything else.
Right.
And I noticed sometimes you don't have it completely on because you're going after the sound, not after what you see in pictures.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because as I'm sure you do sometimes, I did a complete take of something, the drum part, with the drum set up a certain way, tuned a certain way. Listened back to it, it wasn't quite there. The playing wasn't there, the tuning wasn't there. Went back a second day, I tuned the snare up. It's pitched higher than I imagined originally. Tuned the rack tom a bit lower, the floor tom a bit lower. Moved the towels around, did a complete round of second takes. Still wasn't close enough. Went back a third day, did it again. And then I got it. Got the playing right, got the fills right.
I mean, when you hear those intro toms,
yeah.
That's what your ears prick up, and you totally hear what you heard on the record. It's really, really impressive. You've done early Beatle covers all the way to Abbey Road stuff. And what's your favorite guitar that you have?
Oh, that's a great question. I've gotten a few recently that have been like lifelong, like dream guitars of mine. So I've got the J160, which sounds wonderful. Not quite as good as your vintage one, but still pretty good. And then the Rickenbacker 12, the 360 12C63, whatever the name is. It sounds like an organ when you play it. And I play bird stuff. I just play open E chords sometimes and just kind of sit back and listen to it. Yeah. It just sounds majestic. And then the classic, I have a Rickenbacker 320B that I've had.
So that thing, I love the way it's aged.
A little hunk of junk.
it looks so good. It looks
Yeah.
like it's been in the clubs and it's sweaty,
Right.
and it's got that cool patina to it.
It's got that look.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
How long have you had it, and did you do all that to it? And
That's a great question. It was a 320B, so it does not look how it did when I bought it. It was my first real guitar. My father bought it for me at the Valley Forge Guitar Show in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. I think when I was 9 or 10.
wow,
It's like one of my first guitars, and it was not very expensive. I think $600. Still pretty beat up when I got it. And my mission in those first few years, that was when my Beatles kind of nerdiness first emerged. I wanted it to look like John's, so I got the bow tie bridge, got the Bigsby tailpiece, changed the tuners around, and I think the biggest trick has been to beat it up since then. I don't even really use a case for it. It just kind of sits around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous.
that's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's got that look. It's funny to me, a lot of folks have Lennon covers on YouTube, and they've got that new C58 guitar, and it looks just sparkling new. The paint is new.
Yeah.
There's no chips
Doesn't have
on
the
the
character
picker.
that yours
Doesn't look
has.
like it. Yeah, it looks completely different. So, yeah.
Yours looks and sounds. It sounds great too. I was listening to your version of "I Want to Hold Your Hand."
Oh, thanks.
It sounds spot on. It's like perfect. You know?
I think it's important to beat the crap out of the guitars, out of the drums, get that aggression into the music. Because John didn't give a shit.
The Beatles didn't even use guitar stands.
Right.
They just threw it up against the amp. They were on the floor.
They had no clue what the model was, the model name.
To this day, they call like the J160 the jumbo.
The jumbo, yeah.
You know, it's bizarre. It's
Gibson
very
jumbo.
bizarre. And then the idea that, I guess Mal did all the strings, so they don't even really know.
Yeah, right.
I think maybe Lennon said that they used rock and roll Fenders at one point.
Oh, is
but
that right?
McCartney is, old shiny ones.
Long
They're
shiny
like-
ones.
And then what about on your Rickenbacker 403?
Yeah, I haven't yet explored the full depth of the Rickenbacker bass sound yet. I've got like the stock rounds on it that came with the bass. I have to get flats one day. Once I start doing like pepper and later stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, like on the Rick for like when you did something, I can't imagine getting that any closer than you got it. Every little curl, every little movement of your fingers was exactly like McCartney did it.
Yeah, that bass part, that's one of the few parts I actually like memorized note for note and studied.
You could see it really came across in the video, and it flowed so perfectly. And it was inspiring to me because I don't really figure all this stuff out unless I have to. But I actually took out my C64 and I started trying to play something based on what you did. But I was totally looking at what you did, and I was just following your lead on that.
Oh.
It was really, really good. How do you tune your drums? So you just do it by ear, or do you have a drum tuner?
Very intuitive. Yeah, I'm not a gearhead very much. I trust my ear and listen to the record, and I think as with something, if something doesn't sound quite right, I go back and do it again. That I think for Please Please Me, the only difference I did was I tuned it up high pitch and listened to like the drum fills on that song Please Please Me. Sounds like the rack tom was high pitch, floor tom was high pitch, and I've kept it that way through Help. Pretty much the same tuning.
So there was a consistency in the tuning, you think, on some of those early records?
Yeah, I think he kept it high pitched. Only in Rubber Soul do I hear, like on You Won't See Me, some real thud on the floor tom and a bit deeper sound on the rack tom too. I could have my timing off a little bit. There's not much tom work on Help that I've noticed. Just like the fill on Help itself.
Yeah.
Not much else besides that. But
So
the snare
you're a
is pitched
trial and
very
error
high.
dude. You just
very
just keep
intuitive.
going over it until you get it right.
Yeah, if it sounds right, that's what I trust.
So here's a stupid, silly question, but it's kind of fun.
My favorite kind of question.
All right. So the Beatles with the cigarette pack, Ringo talked about that, and you had that in one of your videos.
Yep.
And I noticed right away you had the Marlboros on there. Do you smoke?
I do not smoke.
Okay.
I have quit smoking. I do not smoke. I don't encourage
So
smoking.
you are a former smoker. I am too.
Yes.
And I don't smoke anymore.
Quit smoking. Do not smoke.
So did you take the cigarettes out of it, or do you keep the weight of the cigarettes in it?
I have a buddy who smokes, and I stole the discarded cigarette box from him.
So it's just an empty cigarette
It's just
box?
I put tissues in it to give it some
all
weight.
right. So you gave some away with some tissues.
Right.
How long have you been doing this? When did you start this new
Let's
channel?
see. About a year ago. Yeah, I put up Real Love. That was my first cover of the new stuff. Exactly a year ago, September of 2020.
And when did it really start taking off for you?
For this new round of stuff?
Yeah.
Around December, January. I had a pretty decent, loyal group of folks who followed me over.
From the
the old
MJ
thing.
Stokes channel you had.
And they were supportive and shared it with their friends, and we went from, I think, 800 followers now to about 2,500, and it's about maybe 200 per month or so.
It's amazing.
It happens quickly. It'll happen to you too. It's
Yeah,
like exponential.
I'm just about to break 300, and I've got one video that's about to break 12,000. But I see people like Mary Spender on YouTube, and in 57 minutes, she's already
8
got like
million
2,000 views,
Yeah.
and you get that too sometimes.
It'll happen to you. It'll happen
I just
to
think
you.
that's amazing. I hope it does.
It will.
We'll see.
No, it will. Yeah, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, I've gotten to the point where things that I wish weren't on YouTube are still there and have 400,000 views from
Now,
like a
why did you?
re-uploaded version.
Let's go to that. The MJ
Sure.
Stokes, which was really popular.
Yeah.
You had a lot of fans from that who actually refused to let it go away, and they put these up and they kept your videos.
Very
that's
loyal.
first of all, that's got to be really cool for you
Yeah.
to know that people appreciated what
It's
you
really
did.
neat. Yeah.
Why did you take it down in the first place?
It's a really dumb answer. I didn't like the way they looked, and I didn't like the name. It's very silly. It was early in YouTube. I just kind of filmed myself in my bedroom, in my
Yeah.
dorm in college. I didn't have a studio. I didn't have what I have now, which is kind of a decent setup. And I didn't like the way they looked.
Okay.
Didn't like the way I came across, really, kind of casual. And I think I wore a Mets hat at one point. I'm a Phillies fan as well. Small stuff like that.
It was the Mets hat that did it. You had
That was it, yeah.
Clean swipe right after that.
Phillies fan, yeah. And I knew at some point I'd redo everything. I kind of knew I'd get back into it. I'd get the real guitars once I could afford them. I had just a Casino and the Rickenbacker to start out with. People are very nice on YouTube, and if they like something, they won't let it go. So I like the group I have now. They're very passionate, and they love what I do.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing it. It's great to
People
see
can be.
people still love Beatles music.
After all these years, they broke up in 1970, and here we are in 2021.
Half of them are dead.
And it's like it's almost like they never aged.
Right.
People are still looking at them when they were 25 years old.
Sure.
It's just amazing.
They're iconic, absolutely. And they always will be, too.
What brought you to the Beatles? Were your parents Beatle fans?
Oh, great
Did
question. Yeah, I was 8 or 9 when the Anthology came out, which is the perfect age to start a hobby, like that perfect sweet spot when you're young, still developing, and you see something you like, and then just completely immerse yourself in it. And the Anthology was pretty great. I think we discount. I think folks your age, when you grew up, you had not much to go with when it came to like looking at Beatles footage, and you had to like go to conventions and get bootleg videos and maybe watch A Hard Day's Night and help. But the Anthology kept it all in one place, like all the concert stuff, and I just fell in love with them. And I knew that like I wanted to not just like learn the music, but figure out what made these songs.
So did
magical.
you watch the Anthology film as well? Is that what turned you on, or was
Oh, yeah.
it just the CDs?
Oh yeah, it aired on ABC, I think,
Yeah.
in like 1995.
Yeah.
I remember watching it as it aired, and I think I videotaped it too. My dad was a fan already too, so he probably nudged me and said, "You should."
So there
watch
was
these
a
guys."
little Beatle
Yeah.
fandom in
Yeah,
the
there's a
background.
bit of nudge, yeah, and he had all the records too. And I think they got me a guitar when I was 10, just a crappy acoustic guitar. I plunked around a little bit, found C, I found D7, and at one point I had this little Beatles chord book, and I turned to "I Want to Hold Your Hand," which is still my favorite part to play, and it said C, D7, 2 of the chords I knew. I played it, and there it was.
Yeah.
I've been hooked on that feeling ever since. And there's still things that you listen to and find with each re-listen, even now, 50 years later. I give a lot of credit to Abley House. They're one of the big Beatles cover groups on YouTube right now. They uncovered riffs in Ticket to Ride I'd never heard before. I think they only appear once or twice on the Casino. I'd never heard those. I've heard that song 10,000 times.
Yeah.
So even now, 50 years later, there's still new stuff to find.
I noticed some of those riffs that you did in Ticket to Ride in your version. And I was like, oh, I never heard that. And I know it's got to be there because you wouldn't put it in there if it wasn't. My question is about the mixing aspect. Do you bury it like it was buried on the record, or do you want to push it a little forward so people hear it?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think I am not very loyal to the original mix. I like to bring out parts that I like, parts that are kind of buried in the original mix. And if I like a particular part, I bring it out. Right now I'm doing You're Gonna Lose That Girl. And I learned the piano part. I love that McCartney piano part. So you can barely hear it in the album mix.
Yeah.
I think it's in one ear only. It's kind of low. I'm going to bring it up. Center channel, boost the volume. I love it. People are they appreciate that you're creating these things, that you still care about the group. And I think people also respond to the energy and time we put into our videos. You with the gear you get, I mean, your guitars are exact. I mean, you can't get closer than yours.
Yeah.
With me, it's kind of the sound and like getting the riffs exactly right. People notice that, and that's what keeps them coming back. And that's what separates our videos from others. So if someone's like, well, that guitar riff isn't what I thought it was. If I disagree, I tell them why. If I agree, sometimes I've gone back and said, you know what, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe I'll have to re-record that video one day.
Yeah.
And if you're anything like me, you aren't happy with what you've done. You want to go back and redo everything.
Let's talk about like what the plugs you use and
Okay.
let's start with the amp.
This is your strong spot and not mine.
Yeah, no, it's, that I disagree because I think that you get the job done and it sounds great. So it really doesn't matter how you do it. What you use is working, completely working. So tell me about like your amp sounds when you plug in your bass and when you plug in your guitars. What are you using?
Sure. So the amp is a Vox Valvetronics 100-watt amp for guitars. Every guitar I use besides acoustics go through that amp. Bass, I have an Ampeg, I think BA1112, just a typical bass amp. The sounds I get are pretty much from the plugins. I have the Waves Abbey Road plugin set. That's a plug for you. Fantastic set. I use it on almost every track, every instrument. The RS-124 compressor we mentioned, I use quite a bit. Standard EQ I use. I usually go through 10 or 11 variations of a mix and just keep adding stuff.
And what program are you recording on?
PreSonus Studio One.
Okay.
I record through that using an interface. I think it's the 1824C interface. And then produce each individual track through that, add the plugins, and then put all those tracks into Audacity for a final mix. I probably don't have to do that last step. I could probably mix it in Studio One, but it keeps things simple for me.
Okay.
And then if I'm still working on the mix, or if I'm not happy with a particular performance, I've gone back and redone a guitar part or a drum part, changed the tuning around sometimes if something's slightly out of tune or if the drums aren't tuned right, and then eventually arrive at the last mix. It's almost never a perfect mix. There's still something I'm not happy with. But yeah. And
You
then
gotta stop somewhere though.
Yeah, exactly. There were more songs to do, and we both have lives.
So speaking of more songs, are you going to try to accomplish every album?
Yes. Yes. It may take some time. I certainly can't afford every piece of equipment myself, all the guitars. So it may take some time to get there. But yeah.
So when
every song.
when is your work time? Because you have a day job, like most of us.
Like all of us. Mere mortals.
When is it on Saturdays or Sundays? Is it weeknights? Is it...
I had the advantage of having no life. I pretty much do it evenings after work if I want to. Weekends are usually when I do most of the guitar parts. And then whenever I have a free moment. Like, I'm kind of an introvert anyway. I like music. It's how I relax. This is the greatest hobby in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I run, too. That's my other big hobby. Even when I run, like, the outside world still intrudes. Like, thoughts come in. I think about that work assignment or that bad interaction I had at work or something. Music is not that way. It's completely immersive. Like, if I'm doing, like, a Beatles riff or if I'm working on a new song, that excitement, like, the whole world drops away.
Yeah, you're not thinking about what you had for lunch
Oh,
or
no.
what deadlines.
Right, yeah.
How do you make choices when you're, we talked about the sort of fanatical Beatle audience that they all have different opinions about what was played on what, and even the Beatles never really kind of set things straight on most things. And then when they do, when McCartney says something, half the time people don't believe him because he's been wrong before. And
Right.
How do you make your choices? Do you listen to Rock Band isolated tracks or go to YouTube and see what's available there?
That's a great question. Yeah. When I did my original videos, I had the disadvantage of them coming out before Rock Band came out. I think that was 2009 when the remixes came out too. All the Beatles stuff was released on CD. And those isolations are so helpful. Like, pretty much all the major tracks now have isolated parts. And if you check YouTube, most tracks have isolated parts now. There are folks out there who spend their time releasing isolated mixes and isolated tracks, and that's so helpful. You can hear the guitar part on Ticket to Ride, that buried guitar part. You can hear the pianette part on You Like Me Too Much. There it is. I just did it like 2 days ago. But yeah, it's very helpful to hear the exact parts, and that's something you don't get from the record.
Yeah.
You can't isolate the tracks. Very helpful. It's almost like deconstructing a magic trick.
Yeah.
Like, we're used to hearing the song with the vocals and how popular that became and how much people loved it. But when you get to hearing the guitar parts, hearing the piano parts, it is kind of like taking apart a magic trick.
And I think that's a great analogy. And then on the Hulu special, the 3-2-1 McCartney, I couldn't believe how his bass sounded in some of the songs. I forget what it was. There was something off the White Album. And it was distorted and punchy, and it was very aggressive. And because it was in the mix, you don't catch all of that, but something in
texture,
that underneath adds to the magic of the sound.
Absolutely, yeah. And
Really
it helps us
interesting.
when we're reproducing it to hear exactly what it sounded like directly, not just
absolutely.
as part of the entire mix.
Absolutely.
Because we are nerds.
So you've done about how many videos now of this new format that you just started?
And I've done Please Please Me in its entirety. I've done A Hard Day's Night in its entirety. I'm halfway through Help, and I have a handful of others. So maybe 30? 30-ish?
Out of all those videos,
Oof.
is there any one that you're most proud of, and why?
The Abbey Road medley. Yeah, I've always wanted to do that front to back from Golden Slumbers through Her Majesty. And I'm going to jinx it, but right now it has 0 dislikes. And I know I shouldn't check the likes and dislikes, but right now it has 0. I'll check today, it'll have 1 dislike. But yeah, just I put a lot of effort into every single part, not just like the drums and the tuning of the drums. The piano part is more interesting than it sounds at first. Like McCartney's doing some jazzy riffs in between segments. And it's just a wonderful song, too.
Yeah, it was a great job on that, too.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering about the string patches that you're using. Is there a sample pack that you use in particular?
Yeah, Cinematic Studio Strings and Studio Brass. They're these really expensive but worthwhile VSTs, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And they sound exactly like real strings. It's pretty amazing.
The orchestration that you did was phenomenal. It just was, wow. You really used the samples to their capability there.
You were so nice. Thank you.
I know, it's true, though. And your fans are showing you that by, watching your videos.
I can't wait to do Strawberry Fields and do the cello parts there. Or do I and the Walrus and do the cello parts. So, I'm doing Yesterday today.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do the quartet and separate the strings and really immerse in the mix. Yeah.
So Strawberry Fields Forever is going to be quite an interesting journey for you.
It's going to suck. Yeah.
Well, no. What I was saying, because they did so many tape techniques, we're slowing down the tape, even the cymbals.
The reverse cymbals, it's going to be tricky.
So, well, I mean, we can do all of that stuff today fairly easy if you know what to do, right? And now with the computer, you can turn things backward and, just a quick switch. But it's still going to be a really interesting journey, that one.
Yeah, that may take a while.
And then the instruments, right? The Indian instruments.
Swarmandal, I think.
Yeah, Swarmandal.
I'm going to have to get a Swarmandal.
Yeah. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been thinking about Sgt. Pepper and checking reverb for like sitars, like cheap sitars. And one day, maybe, who knows? I want to get the authentic sound, but we're also human beings with limitations, so I'll have to figure that one out.
So, do you use drum overheads? Obviously, I saw one of your videos. I thought you weren't using them, and then I caught one of your stills. I'm like, wait a minute, he does have a drum overhead.
Peeking in. Yeah, I have one condenser mic. I have no idea what the model is, but yeah, I do use it as an overhead. I put it somewhere between the rack tom and the snare, maybe 3 feet.
So you got a mono overhead?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. I've got a Shure SM57 under the snare. I've got these clip mics on the toms.
What's the brand of that pack that you bought?
I think it's CAD?
CAD, yeah. So they have the whole CAD kit that you bought.
Yeah. I was looking to mic my drums better than the past, which was just one overhead Shure mic, which is not a great technique. So I looked on YouTube and found a video for like drum miking on a budget. And it's this young guy like me just like talking through how he mics his drums. And one of his recommendations was this 6-piece CAD setup. And I think he just uses the kick drum mic, but I use the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
One clip mic for each rack tom, floor tom, snare. I got the kick drum mic. I've got a Shure underneath the snare, and then the overhead.
Right.
And somehow mix it all together.
It makes it sound great.
Decent.
You've got a great drum sound, which is a big challenge for a lot of people. Your drums really stick out as being extremely well done. Not that you don't play the other instruments well, but the drums, to me, are the hardest thing to replicate because the guitars are guitars, and they're a lot easier, I think. Getting the drum tuning and getting the drum muffling, to me, is, if you can do that, then you really unlock one of the biggest secrets of that whole sound, because if you get the drums wrong, everything's going to sound
That's
wrong.
right. That's a great point. And people really discount Ringo's contribution to the group, too. Yeah, you mentioned the Something cover, and I watched some of the other YouTube versions of the song, and they were close, but I didn't get chills listening to it. And one of the biggest indications of that is the opening fill, which is da-da-da-da-da-da. And I did my version. I did my first 2 takes, and I didn't get chills. So I went back and listened to it. He's really hitting that first tom hard, and it's syncopated really specifically. It's like da-da-da-da-da-da. And what really helped after learning that was the middle 8 fill is exactly the same thing, just repeated on a loop. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Watch the video, you'll understand. But I think breaking it down into its component parts and getting that syncopation really adds that next layer of the mix and makes it sound wonderful. Yeah, Ringo he brought it all together. Yeah.
Well, I was watching some of your hits with your single. You're doing triplets and things like that with one hand, and I'm wondering, okay, does he play that well, or is that 1,000 takes to get?
Yeah, that was take 84.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
no,
the Beatles did a lot of takes.
Yeah. Drumming is the instrument that I need the most practice to get that good.
Yeah.
Guitar I can pick up, and within 5 minutes I'm getting a usable take. Drums, I'm sitting there for 20 minutes playing it, and then get the first usable take.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not bad, but the only time I practice is when I record.
Yeah.
So if I put more time
Same
into
here.
it.
I can handle drums pretty well, but I only really practice when I have to do something.
Exactly.
What's your favorite guitar? I don't think we got that yet.
Oh, favorite guitar that I own and play?
Yes, that you own.
Great question. Favorite to play is the 360-12. But favorite of all time is the 320, 325. It's that look. That guitar is rock and roll. Do you have a favorite guitar?
My Casino.
Really? So you have a 1964?
I have a 65.
65.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's my holy grail. That was the one that, just like the J160, but that was the one that I'd always wanted. And I saw the guitar that I bought 10 years before I bought it. The guy was saying, "Hey, I just bought this guitar." It was on Vox Talks.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember Vox Talks,
sure,
that
of course.
posting board.
Yeah.
And this guy had posted a picture of it. I downloaded the pictures because I keep all these. I'm kind of obsessive about guitars.
A nerd.
And I keep a library of pictures of vintage guitars and things
We
like
all
that.
do. We all do.
And this guitar, I have pictures of when this
the
guy
exact
posted.
guitar, not just the same make
My
and model.
guitar.
The guitar. 10 years
So
before you got
10 years before I got it.
It was meant to be.
And it was meant to be. Because
Obviously.
it came up, and I had looked around my studio, and it was on eBay, and I thought, okay, how am I going to bid for this thing and get it? And I started thinking about what I could sell around me.
Left arm, right
and
arm?
it was really about, I want the guitar more than that. I want it more than that. I want it more than that. Never look back. It's been the best investment I ever made, and I sold everything within a month to get it. And it was just that I want this guitar so bad. And it was everything I thought it would be.
And it was worth it, too,
It was
right?
totally worth it because I've used it in my original music as well. And now I've got this weird thing where I can actually show it to other people who are interested in seeing a real 65 playing Beatles music. And that's,
Yep, and he's making a video right now.
That's my next video.
On that very topic. It sounds amazing, by the way. And I got to see it before you.
You heard the revolution.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah. That's the one? That's your dream guitar?
That's the guitar that I use the most in my own music because it's so versatile, and I can see why the Beatles had it.
Yeah.
It's rocking when you need to be rocking.
Yeah.
It's great for embellishments. It sounds different in different amps.
It's a great guitar.
And I have Strats and I have Les Pauls, but that's a special guitar. When I pick up that guitar, it's like, it has that. And I've had people thought I was crazy because for the first couple of years with that guitar, I had flats on it.
Did you really?
Because I wanted
it's a very
to get
different sound.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I wanted to get the Day Tripper sound, that ping. And the Casino does that with the P90 with flats.
Do you think that's the Casino, the Day Tripper sound?
No, I don't.
Me neither.
I don't. I think it's probably the
Tenny.
Yeah,
we agree.
And you blend the pickups. I tried that, but you can get that sound. However,
From
you
the
can do
Casino.
that with a lot of guitars.
It's a very versatile guitar.
And so before I had all these other guitars, that's what I was doing. I had on flats, and then for Revolution, this new thing that you just heard, I took off the flats, and I put for the first time ever.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, I put regular rounds on it, and I had to raise the accent a little bit because it wasn't the same, and fix the intonation a little bit. I love it.
And that's the sound. It sounds identical to the record. I can't wait for you to hear it.
So it's interesting now because I'm going to play that guitar now with rounds after all these years
With
recording
flats, yeah.
and playing it. I recorded my own stuff with flats on the Casino, and it had a certain sound to it. But now I've moved away from that, and I can do a lot more with the rounds because you can play a lot better leads and stuff like that. It just works better.
It's like a brand new guitar now.
Yeah, but it still is the Casino. And you never get away from that. It's still a 65 Casino like Lennon and Harrison had.
Sure. Looks very cool, too.
It's very cool, yeah.
Last
I'll take
question.
that out later.
There you go. Very nice. Good talking to you.
Hey, great talking to you. Thanks so much. Now, you ready to get to work?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay.
Play some
Bye-bye.
guitars.